Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to unpack a stack of sources to, well, get you informed, maybe even a little surprised. And speaking of surprises, picture this. Mike Tyson. Not in the ring, but in jail, reading an 11-volume history series.
No way. Mike Tyson.
Yeah, that Mike Tyson. He actually read Will Durant's Story of Civilization while he was locked up. Said it was incredibly interesting and educating.
Wow. That's more than just a fun fact, isn't it? Kind of gets right at the heart of what made the Durant's work special.
How so?
Well, it shows their power, their ability to make really dense history accessible. And not just accessible, but genuinely gripping, even for, unexpected readers.
Absolutely. So that's what we're diving into today. Will and Ariel Durant's big series, The Story of Civilization.
Right.
Our mission, basically, is to figure out what makes these books, as one reader called them, a priceless gift to humanity.
That's quite a statement.
It is. So we'll look at the huge scope, their unique style, touch on some criticisms too, and then maybe connect it all to something like the Enlightenment.
Okay. And we've got a good mix of sources for this. Reddit threads, detailed reviews, articles on their legacy, the history itself. It should give us a pretty rounded picture.
Sounds good. So starting with the Durant's vision, the sheer size of this thing, what hits you first?
Oh, the scale. It's just massive. We're talking 11 volumes, nearly 15,000 pages.
15,000?
Yeah. And published over, 40 years? 1935, right up to 1975. Yeah. And it wasn't just sitting on library shelves either.
No.
Sold millions. Translated into over 20 languages.
Yeah.
And it got serious recognition, too. A Pulitzer Prize for one volume, Rousseau and Revolution, back in '68.
Huh.
And then a Presidential Medal of Freedom in '77. That's pretty major for a popular history work,
Definitely. And their goal, they called it a biography of civilization. What did that actually mean in practice? More than just kings and battles.
Oh, much more. They really wanted the whole picture. Culture, art, philosophy, religion, woven together.
Right.
And covering this huge sweep of time, like 2,500 years. Ancient Greece, basically up to Napoleon. And, for the time it was written, it was pretty notable. They included chunks on the Middle East, India, China, Japan. Even if later critics said it was still pretty Eurocentric overall.
Still, that's a broad canvas. And the sources keep mentioning how readable it is, despite the size. Engaging, even funny sometimes.
Yeah, that comes up a lot. People found it coherent, easy to follow. Someone said the Durants make the history of ideas seem like a peaceful afternoon in a paddle boat.
Huh. I like that. Makes it sound quite relaxing.
Doesn't it? And another person was just amazed at how they could connect everything, make sense of all this information in a, clear storyline.
Which probably explains why people say they actually remember what they read.
Exactly. It provides endless reading pleasure, apparently, but you also walk away feeling like you learned something solid. That's quite an achievement.
And we should probably clarify the authorship, too. It started as Will Durant, but his wife, Ariel, became co-author later on.
That's right. For the last 5 volumes, she's credited as co-author.
Yeah.
And some readers really valued her input, especially bringing in more about the history of women, which often got sidelined back then.
Yeah, that's a good point. Though one source did mention their personal story, Ariel marrying Will when she was only 15 and he was 28. Calls it not moral nowadays. Does that sort of complicate things when we look back at them?
It certainly adds a layer, doesn't it? It's a reminder that historians are people of their time, too. And we inevitably view the past and the people who wrote about it through our own sort of current ethical lenses.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. Maybe to really get a feel for their approach, we should look at one specific volume.
Good idea. Volume 7, The Age of Reason Begins, is a really good one for that.
Yeah.
Covers 1558 to 1648.
Okay, the late 16th, early 17th century. What made that period so important in their view? Why the Age of Reason begins?
Well, they saw it as this really crucial turning point in Europe, a time when, as they put it, murderous nationalisms were on the rise, but murderous theologies were just starting to decline. So a real cauldron of change, but pretty violent change, too.
Right. Lots of upheaval, and the people they write about from that time, major figures.
Absolutely. You've got monarchs like Elizabeth I in England, Philip II in Spain, Henry I in France, Mary Queen of Scots, James I, Charles I.
Heavy hitters.
Yeah. But then also the thinkers and artists who were arguably just as important, maybe more so. Shakespeare, Francis Bacon, Montaigne, Rembrandt, Galileo, Descartes.
Wow, what a list. Marlowe, Cervantes, El Greco, Rubens, Tycho Brahe, Kepler. Giordano Bruno. It's like a who's who of the era.
Exactly. The volume really tries to capture how all these different people were shaping things.
And it was a time of intense conflict, right? Religious wars, political struggle.
Oh, definitely. The 30 Years' War tearing up Central Europe, the English Civil War brewing, the Dutch revolt against Spain. It was messy.
So how did they handle someone like Queen Elizabeth I amidst all that?
They really highlight her pragmatism. I mean, think about her background. Declared illegitimate, locked in the Tower at one point.
Right.
She had to be politically sharp. And she picked smart people like William Cecil and Francis Walsingham, who basically built this huge spy network for her.
And her own views. Interesting mix there. Calling the fights between Christian groups a mere bagatelle.
Yeah, quite dismissive. But she was also suspicious of free thinking, didn't like the really hardcore Puritans either.
So it was about stability for England, above all else, even if it meant cracking down.
Pretty much. That pragmatism could be harsh. The Durants detail the anti-Catholic laws banning mass, destroying images, making it a capital crime to support the Pope.
And priests like Edmund Campion, tortured, executed.
Yes, and it wasn't just Catholics. Puritans pushing for reforms, wanting to purify the church, they got targeted too.
The Martin Mar Prelate pamphlets.
Right, and leaders like John Greenwood and Henry Barrow ended up hanged. It shows how tangled religion and state power were.
And this extended beyond England too, didn't it? Ireland, for example.
The English conquest there involved really brutal suppression of Catholic rebellions, massacres at places like Rathlin Island, Smerwick Bay,
Durant stuff.
and then the plantations, basically giving confiscated land to English settlers.
Yeah.
Edmund Spencer, the poet, actually got one.
Wow. But okay, amidst all this conflict and persecution, the Durants also track the rise of reason, of science. Francis Bacon comes across as key here.
Absolutely. Bacon was championing this new approach, inductive study, experimentation, moving away from just accepting old authorities.
And his vision in the New Atlantis, it sounds almost sci-fi for the time. What did he predict?
It's incredible, really. He described things that sound like microscopes, telescopes, even self-winding clocks, submarines, cars, airplanes.
Seriously? Airplanes?
Yeah. Anesthetics, ways to preserve health.
Yeah.
It shows this amazing foresight, this belief that science could actively reshape the world for the better, a really revolutionary idea then.
And it wasn't just theory, right? The Durants list actual inventions popping up.
Oh, yeah. Practical stuff, too. Using gunpowder in mining, screw lathes, knitting machines, revolving stages for theaters, threshing machines, even a fountain pen.
A fountain pen. And giant bellows, complex water pumps, truss bridges, and that submarine in the Thames. Did that really happen?
Apparently. Someone built one that traveled 2 miles underwater in the Thames. It just shows this explosion of ingenuity happening alongside the turmoil.
Incredible. And then there's the Galileo story. How do they handle his conflict with the church?
With nuance, actually. They point out the church authorities weren't totally closed-minded initially. They were okay with heliocentrism as a hypothesis, a mathematical model.
Just not as proven fact that contradicted scripture.
Right. So Durant offers this kind of provocative takeaway. Galileo suffered for the right to be wrong, which really makes you think about that clash between faith and emerging science.
And as science and reason advanced, skepticism grew too.
Definitely. The Durants note this shift. Debates started moving beyond just, say, the Pope's authority, to questioning the existence of God altogether.
You had figures like Giordano Bruno burned for heresy, for unbelief, and these Epicureans questioning things like the Last Judgment or hell.
And Montaigne is such a fascinating figure in this, sort of embodying this nascent reason, but also questioning reason itself.
Right, that famous question, why should we trust reason? He loved his solitude, searching for a kind of natural morality.
And he'd accept something like the soul's immortality on faith, perhaps, but couldn't find proof for it in logic or experience.
Leading to that amazing line, nothing is so firmly believed as that which is least known. Still resonates today, doesn't it?
It really does. Which sort of brings us to how the Durants themselves are viewed now, their legacy, but also the criticisms.
Okay, so why do some historians debate their work? What are the main critiques?
Well, the big one is that it's not really based on primary research. It's a grand synthesis of existing scholarship.
Right, a secondary source, essentially.
Exactly. And some see it as too focused on great men, kings and philosophers. Maybe not enough social history. Definitely Eurocentric, especially the earlier volumes' treatment of non-Western cultures.
And historical understanding evolves, right? So some parts are just bound to be outdated now.
Sure. New discoveries, new interpretations. That's natural. And a few people find the writing style itself a bit wandering, peripatetic, one source called it, or maybe trying too hard to be witty, a bit droll.
Okay. But then on the other hand, their impact seems undeniable.
Oh, hugely. For so many people, these books were the spark, the catalyst, as one person put it, that got them into history in the first place.
Like a gateway drug to history.
Huh. Maybe. They provided this essential overview, this kind of remedial education for people who hadn't studied it formally.
And they made history popular for a massive audience, which is no small feat. You mentioned even scholars read them growing up.
Yeah, many did. Found them formative, inspiring. Despite the academic critiques, they're still really respected for their insight into the human condition, their sheer storytelling power.
And that idea of them being part of middle-brow culture.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Having the set on your bookshelf was a sign,
Right.
an indicator of educated household, even if maybe not every single page got read.
Yeah.
They were a cultural artifact in themselves.
Interesting. Okay, so let's connect all this back.
Yeah.
How does their work, especially that Volume 7 on the Age of Reason beginning, tie into the Enlightenment?
Well, the Enlightenment, think mid-1600s to late 1700s, is often called the Age of Reason proper, right?
Right.
When philosophers really started applying scientific thinking to politics, society, everything.
Okay.
And the Durants in that volume basically lay out the immediate backstory. You can see all the threads leading directly into the Enlightenment emerging from that period they described.
Like what specifically, what precursors can we see in their account?
Well, first, you have those powerful absolute monarchs consolidating control. Louis the Fierceth, Peter the Great. They centralized power, often crushed dissent, which created a kind of tension, a backdrop for new political ideas.
Right, and the Protestant Reformation had already challenged the Catholic Church's total authority.
Exactly. By pushing individual interpretation of the Bible, it kind of opened the door, conceptually, for more independent thinking about authority in general.
And then the huge impact of the scientific revolution, Newton, Galileo, Bacon.
That emphasis on observation, on reason over just accepting tradition, it directly undermined old beliefs, especially those upheld by the church, and gave intellectuals a new model for finding truth.
Plus, more practical things like more books being available.
Absolutely. Gutenberg's printing press wasn't that new by then, but book production was ramping up, literacy was slowly increasing, ideas could just spread much faster and wider.
And people were gathering in new ways too, salons, coffee houses.
Yes. New urban spaces where intellectuals, merchants, artists could actually meet, talk, debate politics and religion more freely than maybe ever before.
So the so what for the listeners?
The so what is that the Durant's work, especially that volume, gives you this incredibly rich, detailed human view of the messy, complicated, often violent process that came before the Enlightenment proper. It shows how that growth of reason wasn't neat or automatic. It grew out of conflict, skepticism, invention, and political maneuvering. It really sets the stage for the modern world.
A fascinating journey through their work.
Yeah.
So wrapping up our deep dive on Will and Ariel Durant's Story of Civilization, it really is this unique mix, isn't it? Storytelling, philosophy, history, offering this sweeping view as how we got here, especially that turbulent shift towards reason.
It is. And as we finish, maybe something to leave you thinking about. The Durants observed the soul of a civilization is its religion, and it dies with its faith. They tracked that very shift from the age of strong religious certainty towards skepticism and reason. So the question for us today might be, what does that ongoing push and pull, that contest between faith and reason, mean for the future of our civilization?
A big question to ponder. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.